on Kickstarter once before. It's about to go relaunch. I believe it's relaunching on April 28th, 2015. And what Crop Cycle is, it's a card game about competitive farming. So you're tending to your own field with the cards, which consist of things like things that you can plant in your fields, weeds that you will more than likely want to put in other people's fields, and these basically kind of like action cards. They're called utility cards. Here you go. And they're blue bordered, so you kind of tell the difference between that and the green bordered cards that you actually plant. Utility cards, like I said, are kind of like action cards or event type cards. So you will use them to either benefit yourself or try to hinder your opponents. So like this particular one, usually you can plant one card on your turn. You can plant and then play a utility card, and you can't do them in the reverse order. If you play a utility card, unless the card says you can't then plant. So you plant, you play a utility card. This particular one, which is crop rotation, lets you plant an additional crop card, so you get to plant an extra crop card. And then you may also plant 2 plants on your next turn, so you kind of keep that around to remind yourself. So things like that. You've got things like the leaf miners here, so bugs and there's bugs, birds, all those kind of stuff, pesticide, but things to kind of remove plants maybe from your opponents. Things that your opponents might plant weeds in your field, so there's cards in here that can potentially get rid of weeds. Otherwise, you can always get rid of a weed by discarding 3 cards. So, if you get a card that lets you do it, that's much better than getting rid of 3 cards. There is no auto draw in this game, except if when you get to harvesting, at the beginning of harvesting, if you've got 0 cards, you get 1 card. Otherwise, you have to take kind of an action. So, there's basically 2 phases to this game. It's your planting phase and your harvesting phase. So everybody's going to get a chance to plant and harvest. In the gameplay, you kind of see this little season card that's on the table that tells you what season you're in, because depending on the card, it can only be planted in specific seasons. So, for instance, carrots here can only be planted in spring, and they're harvested in summer. So they tell you when you can plant them, when you can harvest them, and how many points you'll get for them. The first person to collect 5 of these harvest point tokens is the winner. And again, what you're seeing playing out behind me is a prototype copy, a review copy, and prototype. So this is not necessarily the final copy. I'm not 100% sure about the art. I believe the art is pretty close to final or is final. But things like the tokens will probably change out stuff depending on how well the Kickstarter does. So it is listed as a 6+ game in age range, 2 to 5 players, and plays about 25 to 40 minutes. I would say that's pretty accurate, especially since you're just going for the 5 points. It's fairly quick to kind of get those points, but at the same time, there's the aspect of the little bit of screw your neighbor farmer, while you're trying to make sure they don't get their points. So you're looking for ways that you can hinder them while maybe not hindering yourself, because some of these cards, like I believe if I find here we go, like the Summer Blight, which you can only use in summer, it's in the name, remove all planted leaf and fruit crops, broadleaf and fruit vegetable, which again, you also get this nice reference to tell you what you can do on your turn. And then on the back side, you have what all the icons and symbols mean. If you play this, if you have a broadleaf or a fruit vegetable in your field, you're going to be getting rid of it as well. So you got to kind of manage when you play that. So hopefully you're getting some of these type of all cards that don't affect your field, but affect the majority of the other players' fields. And then there are a bunch of these Farmer Fortune cards in here. So Farmer's Fortune basically is kind of like a cancel. Kind of an interrupt, if you will. So I play Summer Blight. You come along and say, nope, I have a Farmer's Fortune. It's pretty much one of the only cards you can play out of your turn. and you're like, nope, I don't want Summer Blight to happen. Now, if I also have a Farmer's Fortune, I can play that and say, no, I believe the Summer Blight is happening. And we can continue to go back and forth. Any player can kind of get in on that if they are at a point where they do or do not want that to happen. And basically by the end, you basically figure out if this is happening or not, depending on who runs out of Farmer's Fortune cards first. There are quite a few of them in the deck, so they do come up quite a bit. And that's a nice little thing too. It's a way for you to potentially, stop some things from happening. Again, 2 phases, planting phase and harvest phase. Plant phase, you're pretty much, again, you're gonna, if you have a card that you can plant, depending on the season you're in, you can plant 1 card, and then you can play 1 utility card. That's the normal thing. I mentioned weeding, so you can discard 3 cards to get rid of a weed that's in your field. Why do you want to get rid of weeds? Well, obviously they're not good for you, and in game terms, you can't score anything in your field if you have a weed in it. So you definitely want to get rid of them before the season comes up that you get to score crops out of your field. And another thing you can do is if you're running low on cards, like I said, there is no auto draw. At best, you will auto get 1 card if you completely wipe yourself out of cards, but you can always draw 3 cards. If you draw 3 cards, you're pretty much skipping the rest of your turn. So you can't draw 3 cards and then plant and all that stuff. You can draw the 3 cards and then pretty much go on to the next player. One of the other things you can do is called Farmer's Auction. So let's say I have these 4 cards in my hand, and I'm not real thrilled with them, or they're all a bunch of plants that I'm not going to get to plant for another pass of the seasons or something like that. I can take my 4 cards, discard all of them, and now I draw 3 cards, so 1 less than you discarded, and you can only do that once per turn. Now, though, because I did it that way, and I actually kind of got rid of a card in the process, but got new cards in my hand, I can still plant and play utility cards. If you do the draw, so let's say, hey, I'm drawing 3 cards, I need 3 more cards. If you get one of the, or have multiple Farmer's Fortune cards in your hand, you can still play these against other players. You just can't plant and play other utility cards on your turn, but you can still kind of do the interrupt type stuff. And that's pretty much it. You keep going. You go through the seasons. Winter, when you hit winter, unless you specifically have crops that say that they do not get removed by winter, by the end of winter, everybody's going to remove any crops that they have that don't specify specifically that they stay around during winter. So winter comes, crops go away if you haven't harvested them already. And again, reasons why you may not have harvested are things like, weeds, having weeds in your field, not watching the rotation. I think I did that once during the game. Where I planted something, didn't realize it didn't have the not winter thing, and I planted it too late for it to come back around. Stuff like that. So most of the crops have pretty much an individual season that they can be used in. The utility cards usually have multiple seasons that they can be used in, but not every utility card can be used in every season. For instance, we had the Summer Blight come up. That one was only summer. Most of them are multiple seasons, but not necessarily every season. Like birds here, which will remove all planted grass and vegetable crops, cannot be played in winter. So that's one season that you cannot use it. And there you go. So you go through the planting stuff, and then harvesting. Again, you take a look at where you are in the season. Do you have a card, for instance, if we're playing out harvesting in summer, and I had carrots in front of me, over here by the kind of harvest icon, it is a summer symbol. So, since I have the summer symbol, I get to harvest the carrots. And the carrots give me 1 point towards the 5 that I need. There are also utility cards in here that can increase your point value for your crops as well. So, you'll want to be looking out for those and playing those as well. Harvest comes and goes. You do that. Like I said, if you are completely out of cards, you'll get auto 1 card, and then you'll kind of switch the season. and continue on in that fashion. So what do I think overall of Crop Cycle? It's one of those games, when you first hear about it, is this something that's going to instantly appeal, at least to me? Hey, let's play a card game about farming. Not really. If I'm completely honest, it is to me, it's one of those blessing and curse themes. It does have universal appeal. Obviously, everybody kind of knows what farming is, knows about farming. But how many people specifically want to look for a card game or a game about farming? Now, there are some out there. Obviously, a lot of people love Agricola. I am personally not a fan of Agricola. And I'd rather almost farm for real. But if you can get past that with with this game, it is a really nice game. It's really fun. I do like the take that aspect. Again, anybody that follows all us geeks in any way, shape, or form knows that we are big fans of take that type games. So when I can do things like throw weeds in your field, make you remove high point plants and stuff like that so that you don't get to harvest them later, things like that, that all has a nice appeal. It is a quick, fast game. It has some icons to it, but it's not icon heavy, not something that you can't just quickly pick up. Again, it's like seasons and type of plant, and that's it. The 6 Plus, for the most part, I guess I can see, I mean, some of these cards do have quite a bit of reading to them. Not like huge paragraphs or anything, but it's depending on the kid and where they are and their understanding, that might be a little bit young. To me, though, I mean, that's one of those things where you could potentially kind of pull out this game and scale it to the younger kids, where maybe you don't play with events for a while until they can kind of get used to that, or you play with just some of the events that have the icons on them that are specifically about removing plants and stuff like that. So, like I said, this is definitely has an appeal to, can be played with a younger audience. So yeah, in the long run, in the grand scheme of things, it is a cool game. I did enjoy it. I mostly liked it for the take that aspect that it brings to the table. The theme itself isn't something that naturally appeals to me. So it isn't something that somebody could just tell me the theme and pull me in, but I will sit down and play it. And if you get me to the table and sit down and play it, that's where the take that aspect kind of comes in. And the playtime. The playtime is really nice. So that makes it a little more, tolerable for family-friendly style gaming. And again, it's primarily cards. So if you have the casual family gamer that's used to playing mostly card games, this is not a bad one to bring in. Not only are you bringing them into the familiar realm of handling cards and stuff like that, but adding some board game style mechanics to it. But you're also approaching them with again, universal theme for a casual player. You're not trying to tell them, by the way, you are a wizard and you are trying to storm the castle and kill the dragon and that kind of thing. It's, we're each farmers that are competing against each other to harvest our crops the fastest and with the most value, basically. All right. So there you go. That's my overall thoughts and opinions, initial impressions of Crop Cycle from Convergent Games. Again, it is launching April 28th on Kickstarter. A very quick, very easy 2 to 5 player game. Really good and easy to pick up. Again, there's you've got your 2 phases. You got a couple alternative things, but again, running out of cards. So guess what I get to do? I get to draw 3 cards. Hand limit is 6. I think I forgot to say that, but things like that. Hey, I've got weeds in my field. I need to get rid of them. I don't have one of those special cards. Oh, that's right. I can discard 3 cards to get rid of a weed. So those alternative actions make sense in the game. They're not something that's very confusing. And primarily what you will be doing is planting and playing your utility card and waiting for your seasons to come up to harvest and score your points. So definitely go check it out if this is something that appeals to you. If you like the idea and the theme of the farming aspect. If you like the idea of a casual card game that you can easily play quickly and pick up and learn easily and play with a casual gamer crowd, then this may be something you want to look at. So again, April 28th, 2015, Crop Cycle from Convergent Games. Thanks for checking us out, guys. We'll be back with more reviews in the near future.